Welcome to Let's Talk Ball. I'm Thad Brown along with Carl Jones. We break down the X's and the O's from every Bills game every single week. We're talking Bills and Jags this week. And as you might imagine, there will be many flowers, many compliments for the guys who are wearing the red and the blue because they were ridiculously good. But Carl, let me start with this. One thing about looking at the film that I like to kind of get a feel for was you watch the game and you think either team A or team B did whatever. And then you see the film and like the whole big picture kind of leans. The lean for me was, my goodness, the Jags are a dumb team. I mean, this is not if you told me right now Jacksonville would finish 0-16 or 0-17, I wouldn't be stunned.
Yeah, they look so ill prepared out there. Didn't look like they were well coached. I think that's the good way to put it. I know on the broadcast and everyone at home probably felt the same way. Like, why do they keep running man coverage? Well, when they were running zone, they didn't have a good feel for any of the routes out there either. So they were just spot dropping and not picking up on anything. So a lot of that has to do with just guys not being prepared out there to do so, because the Bills defense were going up against some of those same looks in zone and were picking up the routes. So that was, I felt the same exact way. It was just like, man, these guys just didn't, they lost the game before the game even started.
There's that one throw to James Cook over the middle. It looked like a shot play from about midfield where it was a play action. And I don't remember which linebacker it was, but the play action is executed. The linebacker realizes the throw, turns his back and like sprints 15 yards backwards to get to a landmark. I get what he's doing, right? I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And while he's running 15 yards backwards with his back to the quarterback, Josh Allen just throws to James Cook behind him for an easy 15-yard gain. It was, that kind of stuff all game long. But as much as the Jags made mistakes, I think more so Joe Brady really had his way with this offense. There were so many good looks, adjustments. The fourth down throw to Khalil Shakir is a nice layer on top of what they did with the Miami fourth down play the week before. You can start anywhere you want. Give me where, Joe Brady kind of stuck out for you in this game.
Yeah, KYP, know your personnel. That's something that you hear a lot in football, with putting, as a coach, putting your guys in situations for their strengths to shine. And I think Joe Brady did a hell of a job on that Monday night. I got two examples for that. One, all draft cycle and even to his beginning of his rookie year here, Keon Coleman has been known as a guy who may not be the greatest one-on-one separator, right? He's not Devontae Adams or Justin Jefferson in that regard. So if you put him in a situation where you say, hey, man, line up right here and just dart for the other side of the field. I can say this as a defensive back. Unless you are Deion Sanders or Darrell Green, there's not a guy on this planet that can stop that route, because it's just impossible to, just without safety help, to guard that route. I don't care if your receiver runs a 4.9. It's just really hard to slow that down. And all right, I'm not going to ask you to run some crazy double move or run some dig route against press man coverage. Run from point A to point B. Can you do that? Sure, he can do that. And of course, he did his 111th and caught the touchdown pass. And then also how he uses Khalil Shakir, I think, is really, really strong and smart. Once again, Khalil Shakir may not be a guy who I trust in man coverage to go win a dig route or an out route, down in and down out. So what am I going to ask him to do? Shallows, quick hitters, bubble screens, stuff that uses his yak ability and where it can shine and be a legit strength with this Bills offense. And the fact that Joe Brady has tapped into that so early in the season is very encouraging to see.
You stole my example. That's exactly the one I was going to use. How do you get a team that really doesn't separate well against man to beat man? We let them run crossers all day, and force defensive backs to chase. And the Jags, never had an adjustment because, like you said, there really isn't one. I'll go back to the fourth down play though. On top of knowing your personnel, I like to see a play caller be able to take, here, I just did A to you or to someone else, and I want to do B before you even make your adjustment to A. And it was the fourth down play because the week before against Miami, he runs the orbit motion with Curtis Samuel, and then Samuel runs right, kind of drags linebackers with him. Cook leaks out left for a touchdown. In this game against Jacksonville, it was Khalil Shakir running the orbit motion. Doesn't really matter. The thing I like even better on top of that is the Miami play starts trips left, single receiver right. The Jacksonville play starts 2-2, but Shakir motions to the left to create the trips look and then motions out of that. So not only is he layering the play, he's layering the motion. And then after that, everybody knows what happens. Cook goes right. That occupies linebackers. The Jags, again, have their back turned, not really watching what's going on. Regardless, Shakir, has a walk away 12-yard gain on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2, whatever it was. Being able to take your good idea and show me that you can stack good ideas on top of that, I'm more impressed with that than anything else Joe Brady's done so far.
And it's nothing like we haven't seen before. It's not like he's creating these plays where, oh my gosh, there's like this route concept or anything. Like these are, I don't want to say day one install because all that motion stuff takes a while to learn. But how many times have we seen a guy just go to the flat on a play? Like that's something that you see all the darn time, and they're doing it a good job of just window dressing. Whereas a defense, you have a core 6 routes that they like to run, but you really don't know what formations they run it out of. And I think that's the part where Joe Brady, like you alluded to, is building upon some of the concepts that he has, and now he's going to have some other levers that he can pull. That was really, really cool Monday night.
On top of that, Josh Allen made multiple off-platform throws where he was dotting I's. The Keon Coleman one, he's basically flat-footed. The Ty Johnson throw is not a step and throw kind of play. And he was putting balls on spots. And you know, Josh Allen has worked so hard in his mechanics, and they're generally pretty good. Even when they're not good, the fact that he's, you know, able to spot balls, to place balls exactly where he wants, it makes everything run even hotter than, you know, all the good ideas Joe Brady already has. I mean, you look at Trevor Lawrence, he had a perfect step and throw ball that he airmailed Brian Thomas Jr. by like 5 yards, and DeMar Hamlin gets an easy pick. So let's not underestimate the throws that Josh Allen was making in this game as well.
Yeah, Josh Allen is really in his Steph Curry era. And what I mean by that, there are times where Steph Curry plays legit point guard, where he's, you know, setting his guys up and he's doing a good job of being a legit traditional point guard. But then there's other times where, you know, 4 or 5 times a game, Steph do some crap where you're like, yo, there's not many people on the planet who would even attempt that. And I think Josh is, combined with Joe Brady, comfortability with the offensive line, doing a great job keeping him protected. He's really found a good balance of, I'll get my 8 assists here and there on the easy stuff, but then, you know, a couple times a game, I'm going to show you that I can pull from 30 and it's going to be nasty and no one else in the league can do it like I can do. So it's through 3 weeks. He's done a good job of blending both of those worlds.
And it was a good mix in this game. I thought the Cardinals game was a little too much, Josh Allen. This game was a really good mix. Exactly what you're talking about. I'm going to take the easy money when it's there. And when I need to make the jaw-dropping play, I got that in my bag too. To your point about the offensive line, and we're not going to give them enough credit. I'm going to kind of almost gloss past them, but they were really good top to bottom. It helps that the ball's getting out quick. You know, if I was Josh Hines Allen or Trayvon Walker, I got on the bus so frustrated because I never had a chance to do my thing in this game. But give the O-line credit, they were very good. I want to move to the running backs who, in general, protected okay. But boy, Ray Davis had a play where he blew up 2 guys blitzing through the same gap. Brandon Mead talked about how much he loved this guy as a blocker. I posted it on Twitter, Thad Brown 7. Carl, what an amazing blitz pickup that was.
Because you found the one that he did at Kentucky too, where it was like,
Yeah.
yo, hold on, not many, like, listen, it takes a certain type of cat up here, like upstairs, to be willing to do that and step up in there. Because you flat-footed, and there's a grown man about 230 pounds who has like a 10-yard head start willing to just run through your face. Or you willing to sit there and do it? Most people not willing to do that, even running backs. The fact that Ray Davis is like, cool, I'll do it. I'll take out you and your partner right behind you. That says a lot about how selfless he is as a player, and the fact that he is that tough. Because like, let's not get it twisted here, man. Like, it takes a different breed of cat to be willing to do that.
And to do it well too, and to do it aggressively. They almost enjoy doing it. I totally agree. One negative for me, tight end blocking was a big problem in this game. Dalton Kincaid's never been a good blocker. He really hasn't improved much this year. And I thought Dawson Knox might have had one of his worst games ever. He got beat in pass protection, which is not, you know, not a thing that he does a ton. But if we're going to have, you know, all the love that we give to the Bills offense, got to, you know, play it both ways. This was the one thing I was concerned about. Beyond that, though, just a great offensive game. Anything else from you offensively?
The only knock, and like, once again, you can't bat 1,000 as a play caller. Don't know if I like Curtis Samuel getting the ball down in the low red zone as a running back. Not something that I would prefer, like when the space is that confined. I understand you want to put something on film to get defensive coordinators to be something to worried about, but do that at like the 50 or the 40, not when we're that close to the end zone where, you know, I want some of my guys who are traditionally feel comfortable toting the rock back there.
I do like that personnel grouping, though. When they put Samuel in on the field as essentially the running back, they often run it with Kincaid as the only tight end, and they'll go, I think it's Keon, Hollins, and Shakir. So you've got kind of traditional outside receivers with a slot in a, you know, Shakir in a comfortable spot. I think, to be honest, if I want my best and most athletic personnel, best pass catching group on the field, that's the 5 I like for the Bills so far. And the Bills have gone to that, you know, a good dozen times so far through 3 games.
No, I like the personnel. Yes, for sure. I just don't know if I like it
Oh, I
how it
totally
was
agree.
implemented. Yeah.
Absolutely agree with your call, low red zone on that run. All right, let's go to the defensive side of the ball. And, Carl, as the former defensive back, I often cede the floor to you here, and I'm going to do it again. But let's talk about 47, because Christian Benford was a guy who I thought would take a big leap, towards the end of camp. And boy, it looks like that's exactly where he's going.
He's a dude, and I'm not really into like ranking cornerbacks because it's the one position where unless you're watching it, like there's not a stat that can really do just do. But having watched Christian Benford, because you and I do every single day at practice and game, he's taken that leap where he's one of those guys out there that can do just about anything that you ask of him. I've thought over his first 2 years, he was really solid in zone. He had really good feel for route concepts, and he could fall up that type of stuff, route anticipation, good hands. That was his calling card. That's why they loved him out of Villanova. But I think this year in particular, he's taken a step in terms of man coverage. And I think that's where you become a well-rounded corner and it gets scary. He's always going to get targeted because he got number 47 on. So, like, that's whatever the case may be with that. But I saw against Brian Thomas Jr., the one clip that he had with a pass breakup. I can't talk about it enough, how hard it is to play that route when you have someone across from you who runs like an Olympic demon. Like, you just want to lose all technique when that guy is fast. You want to just open up and bail out and run. But the fact that Christian Benford felt so comfortable to stay in his pillow, okay, then I'm going to cross over and run, and then I'm going to stab and get up out of there. It takes a different type of comfortability in your technique and confidence to pull that off. And he's really combined the confidence that he's always had. You've known him since he's gotten drafted. He's always been a confident player, but he's combined that confidence with skills on the field, and that's a scary sight, especially at cornerback.
I will say, I thought the Brian Thomas Jr. break on that route was.
It wasn't a good break.
Yeah, it wasn't.
But I'll say this.
Go ahead.
Pass breakups generally are because the receiver didn't run a good route. That's on you as the DB to take advantage of the fact that he didn't either a good bad ball or a bad route.
And to underline that, everything you said about the way Benford played it as being perfect was 100% accurate. And beyond that, too, it wasn't just him. There were multiple reps. Rasul Douglas had a good game, as you might expect. Jamarcus Ingram is in there, too. I will say that there were a few times I saw Cam Lewis make a couple mistakes. Ingram did get beat on one angle route from Christian Kirk, to where if Trevor Lawrence had more time or took more time, we might talk about that too in a minute. There was more available than Jags made it seem like. But this is the NFL. You're not going to play a 100% nothing's ever open game. The Bills' coverage, by and large, even the linebackers too, I thought was pretty darn good. Give me your take on Balin Spector, Dorian Williams, their first game starting together, less so against the run. I think they were okay against the run, but the Bills offense got this thing out of hand so fast that really their job was to, get downhill and blitz occasionally and make sure that nothing was leaking out running back tight end wise when it came to the pass game.
I thought they did a good job in terms of feeling routes and some of their zone blitz coverages where when they bail out of there, where they're up on the line of scrimmage or in a different position, they felt the route concept, which speaks to the preparedness. I did also think that there were some reps where I was like, holy cow, if Trevor got back to that, that's a catch. I know that Dorian Williams had a rep against Travis Etienne in the red zone where I was like, ooh, they lucky Trevor didn't progress to that. I do know he had the great coverage on him down the field on the wheel route, so shout out to Dorian for that. But I do think that the Jags offense was not creative, where they didn't really blend together at all whatsoever. So they didn't really attack those guys like I thought you probably should. They're the weak link on the defense. But by and large, if that's the weak part of their skill sets, I thought they did enough to not be a liability out there.
Totally agree. And let's talk about the Jags just for a second. Is Trevor Lawrence a bad quarterback? Because he looked pretty darn not good in this game. And not just, look, the interception was one thing, but how many times did it seem like Lawrence locked onto one read and wouldn't come off of it? This is not a rookie. This is not a guy that's a low talent quarterback who's just happy to get the ball out of his hands. This should be, a franchise carrier team type guy. And like you said, there were not a ton, but a solid handful of plays where you're like, dude, just take a minute, look to the other side of the field, and there's someone available for you.
The first drive of the game, he throws like a comeback to, I forget who it was at the top of the screen, and Cam Lewis almost picks it off. And I'm like, that was never open. Like at any point. Like,
yeah, that third down play. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Like, that was never open. Like, what led you to that side of the ball? And I'm not going to sit up here and say I know how like quarterback progression should read, but I know for a fact when Patrick Mahomes is in the playoffs or Joe Burrow's cooking, they can feel that out. So I'll just say that. Listen, I know the circumstances around him aren't great. I know that Jacksonville media, they're not the biggest fans of Press Taylor, their OC, and Doug Peterson has his own little things going on. So I'm not naive to that. But like you said, if you're a guy, one of those generational talents, first overall pick, you are supposed to overcome some of that. Not all of it, but some of it. And to this point, he's sinking down just like everyone else.
That play was one where Greg Rousseau had an incredible rush, drew a holding penalty. And yeah, there's pressure in Lawrence's face right away. But there are other things you can do other than trying to jam something into double coverage that's just totally stoned on the sideline. Throw that thing in the stands. That would have been the better choice. I get Rousseau's right there, but this was the thing he was doing most of the game. Even, a couple scrambles, you're like, hey, you ran that so early, you had no chance to go anywhere. Let's move it to the D-line, though. Greg Rousseau had the early pressure on that first drive. Didn't do a ton after that, was okay. Von Miller gets another sack. And, I got a question today talking on a radio interview about, is the old Von Miller back? And I was like, flatly, no, this is not pre-ACL Von Miller. But Von Miller does enough every single game through 3 games now to where you can count on him to get 1 to 2 to 3 really ridiculous drive-ending pressures. And if he can get home on 1 out of those 3 every week, again, 1 sack every week is 17 sacks. We talked about it last week. It's a darn good season. You don't need Von Miller to be the ridiculous guy. Maybe you do. We'll see later in the season. But what the Bills are getting out of Von Miller is 2 or 3 really good pressures a game that have been leading to sacks.
Yeah, Von Miller was like one of the greatest edge rushers we've ever seen. So, and before pre-ACL and during his Denver days, I hope no one thinks that's what we're seeing so far. But like you said, I think he's exceeded expectations to this point. Like if you would have told me he had 3 sacks, I would have been like, yeah, maybe in December, like not at this point in the year. But that's fair to say. Yeah, I do think the defensive line in general. When I look back at the pressure rates, I'm like, yeah, that lined up about right. They were about above average, I believe, this week. It wasn't crazy. There were situations where it looked like they were going nuts. I know towards the end of the game where I don't like using the Q word about professional football players, but it sounded like the Jags on both sides of the ball in that fourth quarter was doing a little bit of that quitting stuff. So Javon Solomon beating Cam Robinson and Walker Little getting beat off the ball by AJ Epinesa. So some of that kind of got skewed. But I didn't think they were overwhelming like maybe Greg Rousseau was week 1.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about real quick, Daquan Jones. I think we've brought him up a little bit. Not quite at the level you expect. And this is, to me, a little bit him being the victim of his own success. I usually expect Daquan Jones to be a really good run defender and a factor in the pass game. And he's like a notch down in both. He's okay-ish against the run so far and really hasn't been an impact in the pass game. I think he's got 1 really good rush through 3 weeks, maybe more than that. But I agree with you. The D-line was good. Trevor Lawrence made him look a little better. The way the secondary covered made him look a little better. Doesn't mean it's bad. I think I'm very encouraged overall with what they've done. But this isn't, the first week, Rousseau has 3 sacks and Von has 1. You're like, whoa, is this going to be bananas? We haven't gotten back to that yet and probably won't because it's going to be, again, hard to reach that level. Real quick, give me your thoughts on Bobby Babich and the game he called. Wasn't blown away, didn't have to be blown away.
No.
It's not like the Bills are dressing up too many things. I will say that they are rotating coverages a little more than I thought they would. When Poyer and Hyde were here, the idea of we're going to show you even and go odd, we're going to show you 3 and go 2, that was like every snap. They're not quite there, but I think they are moving stuff around, large movements. I mean, I saw Cam Lewis drop off the line into a cover 2 look, on a play in the first half. So they're doing more stuff than maybe I thought they would.
Yeah, and I do want to touch on that for a little bit. As a defensive coordinator and coach in general, sometimes you do use some of that disguise and movement when you may not have the personnel to just say, line up, we can beat you. Like that's just like you look at the Browns, for example, they're one of the least static, they're one of the more static defenses in all of football because they feel as if we have the personnel to just whoop you. We don't need to disguise stuff. The Bills' second safeties and at this moment, linebackers, you have to do some of that more funky stuff because of the fact that, hey, they just can't line up and guard that guy. Like we saw when they did try that one time on 3rd down, DeMar Hamlin got beat on the out route by Christian Kirk. So that's why you're seeing some of the more creative stuff to where the scheme can overcome some of the deficiencies that they may have in skill set, especially at safety and backer.
Yeah, they were comfortable blitzing with 4 a lot of the game. I've sent a couple of good ones. The Jamarcus Ingram, Cam Lewis blitz I like. But nothing crazy. It didn't really have to be crazy when the offense was just, steamrolling teams like they were, steamrolling the Jags like they were in the first half. All right, I'm good. Anything else for you?
No, I'm just listen. The Bills played phenomenal, A++. But what we saw out of the Jags, I was like, man, I don't want to watch this anymore. Like that's the point that I got to.
And no matter what you think of the Ravens coming up, they're 1-2, haven't started the way I think people would expect. That's a much better organization to where a lot of the dumb stuff you saw Jacksonville do, you don't think a John Harbaugh team is going to do. We'll see next week, but I think this will be a test the Bills haven't seen all year. All right. You can always watch Let's Talk Ball at RochesterFirst.com, WIVB.com, on YouTube, and you can also listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back with you next week after the Bills and the Ravens. For Carl Jones, I'm Thad Brown. Thanks for watching and listening.